The conference room smelled like leather and cold ambition, the kind of space where power gets redistributed every quarter. I stood in the doorway holding a slim leather folder, watching my sister Victoria perform her favorite role, the competent one. She sat at the head of the 20-person mahogany table, PowerPoint remote in hand, explaining third-quarter projections to the board of Meridian Tech Solutions, the software company our late father had built from his garage 32 years ago. She didn't see me at first. Nobody did. I dressed carefully, navy suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back. Professional invisibility. As interim CEO, Victoria announced, I've identified several cost-cutting opportunities. We can eliminate our veteran hiring program. It's reduced profit margins by 2.3% annually. Pure charity work that Dad insisted on for sentimental reasons. That program had placed 847 veterans in tech jobs over 6 years. My father, a Marine Corps veteran, had considered it his legacy's moral foundation. Victoria considered it inefficiency. Then she saw me. Her face shifted, jaw tightening, that micro-expression she'd perfected since childhood when someone threatened her narrative. Emma, what are you doing here? This is a closed board meeting. I'm attending, I said simply, moving toward an empty chair. You're not on the board. You're not even employed here anymore. She turned to Martin, the head of security standing near the door. Martin, please escort my sister out. Family drama doesn't belong in corporate spaces. Martin was 53, former Army, hired 8 years ago when I'd been VP of Operations. I'd personally reviewed his application, overriding HR's concerns about his employment gap after combat deployment. I'd seen potential where others saw liability. He cleared his throat and the sound carried weight. Ms. Anderson purchased 51.7% controlling shares last week through the estate settlement option. As of Monday morning, she's the majority shareholder. He paused, letting that information detonate. She's your new CEO. The room went silent, the kind of silence that precedes tectonic shifts. Victoria's face drained of color. That's impossible. The shares were divided equally. I got 50%, she got 50%. Not quite, I said, sliding into the chair directly across from her. The leather folder made a soft sound as it touched the table. Dad's will divided his 70% stake equally between us. 35% each. But Mom owned the remaining 30% privately. You forgot about Mom's shares. I'd learned about ownership structure the hard way. After Dad's funeral 8 months ago, Victoria had immediately positioned herself as interim CEO, telling everyone I was too emotional to handle business decisions. She told the board I was taking time to process grief. She told our mother I was having a breakdown and shouldn't be involved in company matters. What Victoria didn't know, I'd spent those 8 months processing something other than grief. I'd been archaeological, excavating patterns of manipulation that went back decades. Mom sold me her 30% stake for exactly what she'd paid for it in 1998, $180,000. Not because I asked, but because she'd watched Victoria operate for 8 months and recognized the calculation in her daughter's eyes. The same calculation she'd seen in her own mother, who'd stolen her inheritance in 1973. The shares transferred legally, I continued. Mom's attorney, Judge Morrison, retired family court judge who handled Dad's estate, verified everything. CC notification was filed last Monday. I now own 51.7%. You own 35%. The remaining 13.3% is held by employee stock options. Victoria's hands trembled. She gripped the table edge. You went behind my back. I went through proper legal channels. Unlike what you've been doing. I opened the leather folder. This is a summary of financial decisions you've made as interim CEO. 8 months of what you called modernization. I pulled out the first document. Each sheet was a separate microclimax waiting to detonate. June 15th, you eliminated the veteran hiring program. Saved $340,000 annually. Also eliminated the hiring coordinator position, terminating Sarah Vance, a Marine Corps veteran with 3 Purple Hearts who'd placed 127 veterans in jobs. Board member Patricia Chin, who ran HR, shifted uncomfortably. She hadn't known about Sarah's background. Victoria had told her it was a redundant position. July 3rd, you sold our community training center building for $1.8 million to a developer. The center provided free coding classes to underserved communities. Dad started it in 2016. It trained 2,430 people over 7 years, 64% of whom we hired. I slid receipts across the table toward the board members. The buyer was Pinnacle Development LLC, a company registered in Delaware 3 months before the sale. Sole owner, Victoria Anderson. You sold company property to yourself at 40% below market value. Independent appraisal valued it at $3.1 million. The room temperature seemed to drop. Board member Richard Torres, our CFO, pulled the documents closer, his jaw tightening as he scanned numbers. August 10th. You increased your salary from $180,000 to $420,000, effective immediately. You claimed it was market rate adjustment for CEO position. Actual market rate for a CEO of our company size, $280,000. You gave yourself a 133% raise while cutting veteran programs. Victoria stood abruptly, chair scraping back. I was running this company while you were. While I was what? Grieving. Kept my voice level. I was documenting. Dad taught me that. He said, in business, paper beats conversation every time. The gambler's fallacy, believing that past investment justifies continued investment despite mounting evidence of loss. Our family had been feeding the slot machine of Victoria's competence for 38 years. Convinced the jackpot of her living up to potential was mathematically inevitable. But some machines are broken by design. The psychological concept is called narcissistic triangulation, the manipulation tactic where someone positions themselves as central authority while isolating others. Victoria had done it masterfully. She told the board I was unavailable. Told our mother I was unstable. Told our younger brother Daniel I was being difficult. Each relationship carefully poisoned so nobody compared notes. Until Mom called Daniel in September and Daniel called me, and we all sat in Mom's kitchen on a Thursday afternoon, assembling the puzzle pieces of Victoria's reconstruction. She told me you didn't want to be involved, Mom had said, her voice quiet. That you'd said the company reminded you too much of Dad. She told me you were having panic attacks, Daniel added. That bringing up business matters would trigger you. I'd shown them the texts I'd sent Victoria. 47 messages over 6 months asking about board meetings, financial decisions, strategic planning. Messages she'd responded to with, I'll handle it, or, not a good time, or simply ignored. Family isn't who shares your blood, Mom had said finally. It's who shows up when blood isn't enough. That's when she offered to sell me her shares. Now in the conference room I continued through my folder. Each page a small death of Victoria's narrative. September 22nd, you attempted to sell Meridian's proprietary software licensing to Cortex Systems for $4.2 million. Market analysis shows the licensing is worth $11.8 million. You were selling company assets at massive discount to a competitor. I pulled out another document. Cortex's VP of Acquisitions is James Morrison, your fiancé. This is the email thread discussing the sale, including his message. Once the sale completes, we can finally start the villa renovation. Patricia actually gasped. Richard's face had gone red. October 5th, you fired Michael Torres, our lead developer, claiming performance issues. Michael had a 98% code efficiency rating and had developed 3 of our flagship features. I slid his termination paperwork across the table. He was also questioning the Cortex deal. His termination letter includes a forced NDA with $500,000 penalty for disparaging company decisions. Judge Morrison had reviewed that NDA, called it unconscionable restraint, and advised Michael he could challenge it. Michael was now consulting with an employment attorney. You've been systematically dismantling everything Dad built, I said. Not to improve the company, to harvest it. Victoria's voice cracked. You have no idea what it takes to run a company. You were always Dad's favorite. I was VP of Operations for 6 years. I built the entire project management infrastructure. I negotiated our 3 largest contracts. I created the veteran hiring program that you called charity. I leaned forward. And yes, Dad and I were close. Because we shared values. We believed profit and purpose weren't opposites. The ghost ledger. Emotional accounting beyond financial exploitation. I'd been assembling it for months. Quantifying the invisible costs of Victoria's lifetime of manipulation. Thanksgiving 2018, Victoria announced her engagement. I'd gotten promoted to VP that week. My news took 3 minutes. Her wedding took 3 hours of conversation. Cost. Recognition of professional achievement, unrecoverable. Dad's cancer diagnosis 2023. I took family medical leave to help with appointments, treatment research, daily care. Victoria visited twice in 6 months, both times to discuss business decisions she was preparing for. Cost. Shared burden of grief, permanent. The funeral. 847 words in my eulogy about Dad's values, his veteran advocacy, his belief in second chances. Victoria spoke for 4 minutes about continuing his business legacy and honoring his success. Zero mention of the people he helped. Cost. Authentic memorial of father's character, irreplaceable. Every family dinner, where Victoria positioned herself as the successful one, the responsible one, the daughter who really understood business. While I was too soft, too emotional, not strategic enough. Cost. Self-confidence systematically eroded over decades. Revenge isn't rage. It's patience sharpened into strategic documentation. I'm calling an emergency vote, I said, to remove Victoria as interim CEO and install permanent leadership. I'm also recommending immediate forensic audit of all transactions during her 8-month tenure. Richard pulled his laptop closer. I'll second that motion. As majority shareholder, I'm authorizing the audit regardless of vote outcome, I added. But I want board consensus. The vote was unanimous. 8-0. Victoria abstained, her face a mask of disbelief. I'm also reinstating the veteran hiring program effective immediately. Sarah Vance will be contacted about returning as coordinator, with a formal apology and back pay for wrongful termination. Michael Torres will be offered his position back with the same terms. Patricia was already making notes. The community training center sale is being challenged. The $1.8 million will be returned, plus penalties for self-dealing. If Pinnacle Development LLC contests this, we'll pursue civil fraud charges. You're destroying me, Victoria whispered. I'm correcting your destruction, I said. There's a difference. The procedural justice unfolded with methodical precision over the following weeks. Week 1. Forensic accountants from Brennan and Associates arrived. They analyzed every transaction Victoria had authorized. The report took 180 pages. Summary: $6.7 million in questionable decisions, including the undervalued sales, inflated consulting fees to companies owned by her associates, and strategic asset stripping that would have bankrupted Meridian within 3 years. Week 2. The board voted to pursue legal action. Victoria was formally removed from all positions. Her remaining 35% shares were placed in a trust she couldn't access or sell without board approval. A legal structure Dad's will had included for exactly this scenario, though none of us had understood why until now. He'd seen something in Victoria that Mom and I had been too close to recognize. Week 3. The SEC opened an investigation into the self-dealing transactions. Victoria's lawyer negotiated a settlement. She surrendered 20% of her shares back to the company, paid $2.4 million in restitution, and accepted a permanent ban from serving as an officer in any publicly traded company. Week 4. Sarah Vance returned as veteran hiring coordinator. Her first act was to create a memorial scholarship in Dad's name, $50,000 annually for veterans pursuing tech careers. I approved it immediately. Month 2. Michael Torres filed a successful lawsuit against the NDA. It was voided. He returned as lead developer with a 30% raise and an official title, Chief Technology Officer. Month 3. The Community Training Center sale was reversed. Pinnacle Development LLC dissolved. The building reopened with expanded programs, now including free childcare so parents could attend evening classes. Month 4. Meridian's quarterly earnings report showed 23% growth. We'd hired 47 veterans. Efficiency was up. Morale was up. The company Dad built was alive again. 6 months later, I stood in the training center's main hall, watching a graduation ceremony for 32 students who'd completed our coding boot camp. 19 of them were veterans. 13 were single parents from underserved communities. All 32 had job offers. 8 from Meridian, 24 from partner companies. Sarah stood beside me. Your father would be proud. He'd be proud of the work you're doing, I corrected. Martin approached, his security uniform crisp. Ms. Anderson, there's someone at the front entrance asking to see you. Victoria. I hadn't spoken to my sister since the board meeting. She'd sent texts, angry at first, then desperate, then nothing. Our mother had tried facilitating conversation. I'd declined. The account was closed. Tell her I'm unavailable, I said. She says she wants to apologize. I considered this. The scorched earth ending-eyed plan didn't include reconciliation. But I also remembered something Dad had said once. Forgiveness isn't mandatory, but doors can stay unlocked without being open. Tell her I'll meet with her, I said finally. In 3 months. After she's completed the financial ethics course the SEC mandated. After she's shown genuine changed behavior, not just words. I paused. And only if she volunteers 20 hours at the Veteran Services Center. Not for my benefit. For hers. Martin nodded and left. Sarah raised an eyebrow. That's generous. It's conditional, I corrected. She wants redemption, she can earn it through action. Whether she actually does remains to be seen. There is no place for who she was in my world anymore. But people can rebuild themselves if they choose the work. Dad believed that. It's why he gave veterans second chances. The balance sheet was clear now. The company was stable. The mission was restored. And I was finally running the organization my father had always intended. One where profit and purpose lived in the same building.